Hello everybody and welcome back to Motorhome Adventures. Thanks so much for stopping by, it's always appreciated. Today I thought I'd like to talk about the heating system on this van. It's a Truma Combi. I thought it would be useful to have a detailed look at it and sort of explain it to the sort of the complete novice, someone who's just got a new van maybe, got no idea how the controls work, doesn't quite understand what's going on. So that's the idea. So it's going to be quite basic and we'll go into quite a bit of detail, and hopefully that will be useful for some of you. Let's see what happens. So the first thing to say is that the boiler is actually sitting underneath this seat here. I'm going to open it up in a minute. We'll have a look at that, then we'll have a look at the controls which are up there, and hopefully you'll be fully equipped to heat yourself up at any time, heat the water, do the two of those things, keep everything clean around the boiler unit. Let's see how we go. Okay then, so first off, before we actually have a look at anything, let's just see whether you've got either of these booklets. What you've got here is the booklet on the Combi E boiler itself, and there's details of the controls. Now hopefully you've got them. They are very detailed, they're a bit confusing in places, but that's something you can reference as you wish. And so what I thought we would do is we'd take a look at this picture here. This just shows you the boiler itself. It's just a photograph of it and a quick rundown on what's going on. What you have is, down through the middle of this, you have heater element. There's an electric one and there's also gas. That provides your energy source. Over the top here is a saddle tank, and that contains about 10 litres of water. So obviously that's where your hot water comes from. Out the end here, the hot air is blown, and that is piped around the van, coming out wherever you find the outlets. They're front, back, usually around the floor in this van. There's also one in the shower room, which you'd expect to find in many of them. And so that's the basics of it. There's very little servicing you can do on these vans, on these heater units. Just one or two things to keep in mind is that they're obviously sucking in a lot of air to blow it around. That goes in through this grill here, and there's another grill there, which is behind that. There's a little fan just blowing onto electric motors. Now obviously you can get a dust build up on those, so if you've got a handy vacuum cleaner, just the brush unit across them, try and keep the dust away. And if you can, it can never do any harm just to have a gentle wipe over the top and remove any dust there. Okay, so with that in mind, let's just move across to the unit itself. Now, as I said, on my van here, it's a Wild Axe. The unit is mounted underneath the third seat. That seat has a cover which is permanently fitted except for this little flap. And if we look down in there, the heater unit is sitting there. And so what have we got to look at? As I mentioned, here are the two grills, this one here, another one there. Just a vacuum across if you can. It's pretty obvious what's going on. Red piping implies hot water being run around, blue piping is cold water. And the only thing that's critical to know is this yellow lever here. You can see it's down at the moment. That means that the valve is closed and it's your drain valve. If you lift up this lever and flick it into the vertical, at that point this tank will drain down, and that gives you your winter protection. It is absolutely vital that you do that if your van is going to be sat out in frozen conditions. If you forget to do it, something may well burst and you won't have any warranty cover for that. Other than that, there's really not much else you can do. And just before we leave, if you want to wonder what this thing sitting here is, with a blue pipe going into it, that is your water pump. That's the thing you'll hear tapping away when you turn the water supply on. Okay, so that covers the basics of the boiler, and then we get to the much more interesting thing, the one you're going to be using all the time, and that is, of course, is the control panel, which we have here. Now if I just kick it into life, we can see what we've got. At the moment we're just showing the time. There's a little plug icon there. That's because I've got mains power on this, and you'll see there's a line drawn across the top. Now that line is relevant because whatever goes on below the line is access points. What goes on above the line is something that's happening down below at the moment. So let's try and explain that a bit further. If we look at the first one we've got, you've got a flashing symbol. We go back to it for the van with a thermometer on it, so obviously that's heating the van. Next to that you have a hot water symbol, fairly obvious what that means. Then we have gas and electric in one cluster. Then there's a fan, a spanner for main settings, a clock, and a timer. I'll explain those all in a minute. I'm afraid you're going to get a little bit of strobing on the screen. That's just the camera doing it. Obviously it's perfect in the real world. So below that you have your two controls. You've got your back button there and this wheel, which does the two things: press to confirm something, rotate left or right to move around. And that's just one of the things that you need to be aware of, that when you press to confirm you can accidentally rotate at the same time. It moves a little bit too easily in my judgment, but anyway, that's just something that is how it works. So if you want to go somewhere, you press and it takes you in there. You see it says it's off, so the heating is off. You rotate, it indicates that it's getting ready to do something on the top line. As I said, the top line tells you things that are happening. Let's set it to 18, press, and now what's going to happen is it needs to start up, and as soon as the heating gets going, which should happen within a minute, this little light will start flashing on the top. Let's see whether that does click in. There we go. And so that tells you now that the heating is doing something. And in a minute you'll probably hear the fan start spinning as well. But that is now doing something. Maybe you can hear the fan now. So if we go back, we can turn that off by confirming that. Turn it back down to 0 and turn off. Now obviously it's shut down very quickly. If it's been working for half an hour, it may well take a minute or so just to cool itself down. So just let it do its own thing. If we move across one, hot water. Very similar, just press, but you get different options here. Eco, hot and boost. Now what do they mean? Right, eco means that it's low temperature heat ticking over. It's about 40 degrees. Doesn't rush to get there either. Hot takes it up to about 60 degrees. Boost gets there as quickly as it can to 60 degrees. It overrides everything else. That's all it's going to do. It's just going to go and blast away and heat your hot water up as fast as it can. Let's just have again, move across again. Now we're having a look at the energy supplies. Press for that, gas, pretty obvious. It's telling you now it's a little gas bottle. Click 1, mix 1. Now it's saying it's gas and electricity. That's an interesting one. Now it's saying mix 2, gas and electricity. Now it's just electricity 1. Now it's electricity 2. So let's just go back and try and explain them. Mix 1 is indeed, it's taking both gas and electricity, but the heater element is working at about 1 kilowatt. Got to go back in there, it's dropped out because I'm not doing anything. Mix 1, mix 2, taking gas and the heater element, but it is now taking it at about 2 kilowatts, i.e. it's using more power, it's doing things a bit quicker. Let's go back in again. As you can see, it doesn't remember where it was. Gas, mix 1, mix 2. Electricity 1, electricity 2 are the same. Electricity 1 is heating at 1 kilowatt, 2 is at 2 kilowatts. So, for instance, we can now press and confirm that it is now thinking about doing something, but we haven't got any heating on. We put it on. Now you'll see it's saying that we've got gas there. Sorry, we've got electricity. It's still using this, what you might think is a gas flame. It's really just indicating heat. And again, in a moment, hopefully, yes, it has. The little gas flame has started clicking, flashing, and so that means that the heating is turning on using electricity. And also note here that there's now a little fan symbol. I will come to that in a minute. We'll leave the heating on. As you can see, it always drops back to the time. We'll now go and have a look at the fan, but just remember the heating is on. It is now giving you some options as to what that fan can do. It's eco or it's high. Pretty obvious what it does. Gentle blow with the fan, bit of a blast. And you can also see that there's one extra fan blade illuminates just there. Eco, that's what it does. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that on eco, and now I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn the heating off. Rotate it down, turn it off, wait for it to settle down, and now if it has shut down, when we go back to the fan, it has now changed what it does. With the heating turned off, it gives you vent. What does vent mean? Vent means sort of ventilation, if you like, or wind. What it's doing is it's just going to suck in the air in the van and blast it around for you. So let's go back there again. Vent. Now you've got a choice. Tiny little speed of the fan. Full blast with the fan. Let's just put it on for a moment. With a bit of a luck, you'll hear the fan start up. Here it goes. That is now just recirculating the air that's within the van. I can't think of many occasions when you would want that, but if you do, let's just turn that off, shall we? Oops, and this is what I mean by being so easy to go wrong. I've went one too far by mistake. So let's just go in again. Got it this time. Off. And the fan turns off. Now let's drop down one. These are your program settings if you want to set up a program cycle for your heating to come on and off during the day, etc., etc. And to do that, you can start and end, and then it goes through a whole cycle of things, like how do you want to set your heating, water, what energy source you're going to use, etc., etc., on and back. And now it's got a little program in it. I'll come back and turn that off later on. This one here just sets your clock. And this one here gives you some settings, general settings, and this strange one is offset. And what that's doing is it's allowing you to set the temperature sensor. The Truma, somewhere in the van, I'm not sure where Wild Axe have put it, they have their own little sensor which is telling it how hot in the room it is. Now, you may not agree with that. You may think that it's reading something else. And so what you can do is, by choosing the offset, you can turn it down a little bit. You can't go up for some reason, or I haven't found out how, and I don't quite understand why. But you can tune it a little bit to try and get it to agree with what you think should be the temperature here. Frankly, I think it's a bit of a detail. So you've got offset, temperature, centigrade or Fahrenheit, brightness, just the brightness on the screen, 12 or 24-hour clock, language, pretty obvious, or index, or reset if you've lost everything and you want to start again. So there we are. I think that's covered all the controls. So just a very quick recap, if you like. That's your reverse back button. So that gives you your time. It does alternate a bit between time and temperature. As I always said, below the line, you get a set of options as where to go and do things. Along the top of the line, it tells you something like something that's happening. For instance, you can now see this little mirrored clock logo here. That's because we set that program. It's got a program in it. It just reminds you what's going on. And so there we have it. And the one other thing just to keep in mind is that if ever you see a little triangle at the base there, it's just a little warning sign. And the classic reason for that is that you may have got your main electric board turned off. So if I just turn that off there, and we come back here, you can now see the little warning triangle is there. That's telling you it's got no 12 volt leisure battery power coming to it, so it's not going to do much. Okay, so those are the main controls. I hope that's been helpful. Just a quick reminder that it's got 10 litres of water. That's plenty for a shower. If you put it on boost, it'll heat it up very quickly. You've got a choice of electricity or gas, provided you're hooked up onto the mains. It will not heat through electricity through your leisure battery. It's just too draining, and so that won't ever work. Okay, I hope that's all been helpful. And I hope you've enjoyed that sufficiently to want to use it as a reference from time to time, and that you'll want to subscribe to Motorhome Adventures. Do hit the button. Ding the bell, it'll send you a message every time you put up a new video. And I hope to see you again back soon. Bye bye now.